My name is Mike Powers. I'm an alcoholic. Now it sounds like I was complaining to him. Yeah. Which I was. Just kidding. I've been sober since July 10th of 2007. My home group's Connected Dots. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm not from there. I moved there about a year and a half ago by way of Los Angeles, and I moved to Los Angeles by way of Minneapolis, where I got sober and where I kind of grew up there in North Dakota. But I'd like to thank RJ for asking me to speak. And I was golfing with a guy that he was calling to ask to come out, and we just finished. We were eating hamburgers, and that guy couldn't do it, and they said, "Could you do it?" And I did. I looked at my calendar, and I thought, this is the one weekend I have that I'm not doing nothing. And if you're new, the but's a big but the reality of it is everything in my life I have because of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was told just to say yes, and you go where God brings you. You go where you're asked to go. So here I am, and I'm doing another talk. So I'm grateful to be here. Michael, thanks for reading. And I'll talk a bit about that. But I've been doing a big book study for the last couple of weeks with a group of guys that are in a men's sober space. I guess it's like a treatment center. It's a treatment center, and. But on page 24, at the bottom of the page, when it says, when this sort of thinking is established with a person that has alcoholic tendencies, he's probably placed himself beyond human aid. And I'll talk a lot about that, because for a long time I thought that me stopping drinking would just be a matter of me stopping drinking. And I don't know if, a lot of hands went up for folks that are in their first 30 days. Maybe there's a lot of you in your first year. There's a lot of you that have been here before. Maybe you've been here and come back, whatever the case might be. But the reality of it is, having alcoholism has very little to do with me not drinking in order for me to stay sober. And I know that because every time I've ever stopped drinking, I seem to get worse. And every time I've ever stopped drinking, I've always walked myself back to a drink. And if stopping drinking was a solution to alcoholism, then we all wouldn't be here, and treatment centers wouldn't exist. You'd actually just have to go to detox or maybe hit a cop, right? County jail would probably be a very effective solution, right? You just remove me from alcohol, put me back in society, and I'd level off and be a regular guy and carry on my merry way, and no more problem, But the problem for me, and I'll get into talking about this, but is that I have an alcoholic mind, coupled with this phenomenon of craving, coupled with this spiritual malady. And I didn't have any of that language before I got here. I didn't know what you were talking about. I didn't know. And I honestly didn't really want to know what you were talking about. I thought you guys were stupid, I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to go to the Halloween party, Like I'm good. Like I'm good, Like I got other things to do. Like really, that's who walked in here. Like if you would have came to me on July 9th of 2007 and said, "Mike, you can go to sleep tonight and never wake up, or you can go to AA tomorrow," I'd have said, "Let's go to bed." I had no problem, I'm not interested in going to AA again. I don't want to get a sponsor. I don't need anyone to tell me how to live my life or what I need to do, or I don't need to find God. I already know it's not going to work. I already know it won't work. I already know it doesn't work. I'm tired, and I really, really just wanted to stop. And fortunately for me, that offer wasn't on the table, because I'd have taken it, And I've been selling myself short my entire life. And I walked. And like I said, I walked back into Alcoholics Anonymous, but as a shattered man who had nowhere else to absolutely go. And I'll kind of thread y'all on how I got there. And with the false belief again of the idea that alcoholism centers in my mind rather than my body, I was a guy who thought AA didn't work, based on not doing AA but hanging around the fellowship. Going to the Halloween party and hanging out, and hitting on the girls, and drinking the coffee and eating the snacks, and that was basically the extent of, that was sober for me, and that was recovery. And then I would sit here and I'd think, this doesn't work. And we were talking about it when we were downstairs. I'm the guy who goes to the gym for a month, and I don't have, I don't look like Schwarzenegger, and I think the gym don't work, Like if it doesn't happen right now, because I'm a drunk, like 3 beers, I'm there right now. I like 15 minutes, you know what I'm saying? Like I want my results now. I want them consistent. I want them every time. And if there's work involved, I'm out of the game. So I didn't know that I didn't know alcoholism was on the table. I didn't know I had it. And every time I had somebody trying to tell me that that's what I was struggling with, I just knew that they were wrong. Because I grew up in a decent home. Parents were together. I had 3 brothers. I was a kid who excelled at sports. I tried at school. I did okay in school. Actually, I didn't try in school at all. I hated school. I've hated authority as far back as I can possibly remember. And So I leaned more into the sports, and I liked doing that. And I was really good at hockey, and I was really good at football, and I'd run track, and I happened to be really good at track, but I didn't really care about track. I just wanted to do track because it made me better at football, and it made me better at hockey, and I was obsessed with being really good at those because I knew if I could just do that, then I'd be the best, and I wanted to be the best, right? So I'm like, I'm this kid, but it's all that mattered to me. And it was a pretty normal home. We got most of what we wanted. We had pretty much everything that we needed, and there was no complaints. My dad was a little, Black Irish, kind of, hair fused temper. Guy'd come off the handle any moment, whatever. But it wasn't like there was love in the home, right? It was a good place to grow up. It was a good way to come up, but I know from a very young age, my mom telling me you should probably never drink, and I don't know if I looked like alcoholism. I don't know if I walk like alcoholism. I don't know if I just, I don't know if I have a twitch or something, but like she could spot something to me that I didn't know, and I'm the kind of guy that, you tell me I shouldn't do something, I start to get interested. Like, so what is this alcohol you speak of, And my mom happens to be sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and so there was no booze in our house, so I was a kid who just became kind of obsessed with that. I thought, well, then we got to figure out whose family drinks. Can we have a sleepover over there? Can we get enough booze finessed out of the cupboard without you getting caught so that we can try this? And I started drinking when I was pretty young. Maybe the first time I got drunk was in 4th grade, and it didn't happen for me. But soon after, before I was heading into middle school, the magic had happened with alcohol, where it just it quieted down a mind that I didn't even know was active. And that's the reality. I've been living in this intense environment my entire life of needing to do more, needing to be better, needing to be the best, and almost this honest, like, it's great because the big book puts language to it, but it's like I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. And ever since as far back as I can remember, I was a kid who, like, I would walk into a room and I knew that I'm better than all of you. Like, I know I'm different. And then I exhale, and I immediately don't know if I belong in the room. And if you guys find out that you're going to know that I'm a fraud, and maybe I don't belong here, maybe I'm not good enough to skate with you guys, maybe you're friends with me because I've got 3 brothers and we'll all beat you up if you don't like me back or whatever. But it could turn on a dime, right? And it was very intense, but I didn't know I was dealing with this. I was just living my life and having a good time. And when I drank, that just stopped. And I fell in love with alcohol from the word go, right? It says it in the doctor's opinion, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. And I loved the effect produced by alcohol from the jump. And when you're, 11 years old, you're not rolling into the bar and starting a tab, and you're not walking into the liquor store and buying booze. Although I was just speaking with a friend of mine recently who's he's in his 60s, and he said in Staten Island, when he was a kid, you could just show up to the liquor store with a note from your mom and say, hey, I'm just picking up some booze for my mom. And they were like, yeah, no problem, And I thought, God, I didn't think of that. Anyway, so sidetrack. But I became obsessed with it. And it affected me in such a way that I didn't even need to be getting drunk. I just needed to know that on, like, Saturday, we were going to be having a sleepover at your house, and you had the booze secured, and we were going to be able to get drunk. And on Monday, I felt better. And the reality of alcohol for me in my life is that's how it made me feel. It just made me feel okay. It gave me something to look forward to. It made the week that was, it's not like I'm under a ton of stress as a child, but it seemed like it, the way I thought, it seemed like it. But my alcoholism kind of took off, honestly, probably there in middle school. Somehow, if you bought weed in middle school, you bought it from me. If you bought weed in high school, you bought it from my brothers. And if you bought weed at all, you bought it from the Powers boys. And I liked that, and I kind of ran with that. And I managed to make it through my middle school days as a honor roll student and pretty much on probation since as far back as I can remember. I did most of my schooling in the principal's office because I was not an easy kid to have in class. I did not pay, I was a nuisance. I like attention, and it's a lot easier to get negative attention than it is to get positive attention. So I'm the kid getting sent to the hallway, and then I say, which hallway? And you don't tell me, I'm on the opposite end of the school sitting there. I'll go, I'm difficult. I don't know why I'm difficult. I just like that. It's not even an alcoholic thing. It's just more behavior disorder, I think. But I want to make your life as hard as possible, really, Yeah, I get off on that. Still kind of do. So, but I'm heading into my freshman year of high school, and it says in the big book that, I cross a line from problem drinking into alcoholism. Imaginary line, I don't see it happen. I don't know when it happens. It happened beyond my control. If I could have stopped it before then, would have it maybe been different? Maybe, who knows? Probably not, because I would have started drinking again later. I don't know. But I know that I'm heading into my freshman year of high school, and it's on. I'm starting. I'm on the varsity football team. I enter into my first month of high school, and I'm as soon as I found out you could cut class, I never went back to class. I mean, my GPA my freshman year of high school was 0.00. I still have not been back to class, right? Like I quit school. It wasn't for me. And they're telling me on the football team, they said, hey, if you want to play, you got to come to practice. I'm a little more Allen Iverson-esque. I'm thinking, no, I don't, practice. I don't come to practice. You just start me, brother. Like, I'm that good. And I thought that I was, because I'm that good, right? Like, and I think from as far back as I can remember, I play by a different set of rules. It may apply to you, but I'm different. I'm better. I'm more talented. I'm me. And the reality of it is I'm drinking. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know about alcoholism. I don't know what it's doing to me in my life. And as I moved through this, I got in a fist fight sometime that year. And what I really wanted to do was play hockey. And I had a shattered hand, and I couldn't try out for the varsity hockey team. And I wasn't going to skate JV, so I'm going to play Bantam hockey. And they give me I'm the captain of the team. I remember I skate one practice, and I turned my jerseys in after practice. I said, I'm too good to skate with these guys. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm too good to skate with these guys. I'll just take the year off and I'll come back. And the reality, hindsight's 20/20. And as I look back at it, the reality of it is I have alcoholism. And alcoholism came into my life and took everything that ever loved and meant anything to me, all my hopes and dreams, and just started to pull them to the side. While making it look like it's my idea. And I think that's the crazy thing about alcoholism, is that most importantly it centers in my mind rather than my body. And I know I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol. I don't know it yet, because we'll get into this. Anyway, my family has a 15th birthday for me, and my cousins are there, and my grandparents are there, my brothers are there. They got the balloons, the cake, the dinner, the thing, and I don't show up, because that's the way that I drink. I don't show up no matter what. I roll into the house sometime that morning around 3 o'clock. My mom's sitting there in the kitchen with the light on, and the balloons are in the thing, and she's giving me that look that I'd become all too familiar with, of just a sad parent wondering what's wrong with her son. And I remember standing there at the island in the kitchen. I remember saying, stop having birthday parties for me. Then you won't be upset when I don't make it home, Like, I don't see anything wrong with what I'm doing. The only thing is that you just keep trying to throw a fence around me and keep me to play by your rules. Let me be who I am, do what I want to do. I'm not trying to burn the world to the ground. I just want to have fun with my friends and party, And that soon landed me in a treatment center. And then, I go to treatment, and this guy's sitting there. He's telling me, he said, you're a drug addict and an alcoholic, and you got some serious rage problems. And I'm like, I just knew he was wrong. Because if you felt the way I felt, and you drank the way I drank, and you felt the way I felt when I drink, you drink with me. Like, this is great. This is the best thing ever. I'm not trying to do harm. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I just don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to, so what if I don't want to go to school and play sports and do the thing or whatever? So, the first time separated from alcohol, though, ever since I started drinking. And I went nuts. I didn't know how to be in my own skin. I didn't know how to handle my own emotions. I did not know what to do. It was like a fish out of water. I was like a scream looking for a mouth. I felt so uncomfortable in this place, and I'm sitting there. It's a 4-week treatment program. I got out of there in 6 weeks, because 2 weeks into that, I attacked some poor kid on the adolescent unit, and they throw me with the adults because they're like, well, he won't beat up men, And hopefully I wouldn't have been able to, but I'd have given it a shot, right? Like, I didn't know how to act. I didn't know, and I was still so young at that time that I didn't know to just cooperate and get through, right? Just be compliant and get through the program. I needed to give you my opinion, and it's like going to, when you get locked up and you want to be, it's easier just to do the time and get, hide in plain sight and then get on with it. But I get out of there and I start drinking again immediately. And then I land in another treatment center. It's a nicer treatment center. It's a Hazelden, and I go to the Hazelden, and I almost get kicked out of Hazelden, and I go from Hazelden to a halfway house, and I'm in the halfway house in Washington State, and it's fun. We're kayaking the San Juan Islands, and we're hiking the mountains, and we're doing the thing, and it's a cool time, and we're going to AA meetings, and I got a sponsor there, and I'm hanging out, and I think this is awesome. This is really cool. The experience has been wonderful, and then I go home and I start drinking, because I don't think that I don't, I understand the concept, like what y'all are worried about, but I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that talks about that we just read about here tonight. Like, I think that I'm different. I'm the guy on page 30 in the big book that says I suffer from an obsession that somehow someday I'll be able to control and enjoy my drinking. And I don't know about you guys, but everything I set my mind to, I do. If I want it, I'll get it. And if I just need to not let booze get out of control, then I'm going to not let booze get out of control. I'll stop this thing. And I started drinking again, and it got worse, right? And then I turned 17 in the Youth Correctional Center. And for whatever reason, some guys from AA came to court. And they said, hey, we know this kid. He's a really bad alcoholic. You should let him go. We'll try to work on him. And that was maybe ill-advised. And I just remember sitting there in my little blue jumpsuit and my handcuffs thinking, this judge looked at me and he said, if you fail one UA for the crime you committed, you're doing a year. I just spent the time in there beating it. They want to charge me as an adult, 5 years minimum for aggravated assault, misunderstanding, stabbed some kid, broke his orbital bone. It wasn't like serious or anything. It was just a hiccup. It was a hiccup, whatever. But it happened, and I'm sitting there, and they were like, hey, we're going to charge you as an adult, because all of my crimes have been violent, right? I've got one minor in consumption. Everything else involves me hitting you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't argue well. And I grew up in a home that with 3 brothers. Like, you want to get your point settled, you just hit him in the mouth, and it settles the score. I grew up playing hockey. You just hit a guy, we'll fight, 2-minute timeout. Cool, I'll carry back on. I'm not gonna hang on to this, but we got to figure it out, Not the way it works in the world. So But I remember sitting there thinking, I wonder when I'm going to do the year, because I know as soon as this guy lets me out of here, I'm gone. And I did. They let me go. I went on the run for 6 months. I completely burned my life to the ground. And the way I live my life and the people I live my life with don't, it's already a life of crime, and they don't want people like me around anyway, because the cops are already looking for you. So having a hot boy running in and out of the house isn't doing anybody any favors. And eventually I had nowhere to go. And I did what most tough guys do. I called my mom, and I said, hey, I rang her from a payphone, and I just said, hey, look, I will come home if I could just have a decent meal, sleep in a good bed, and I'll turn myself in tomorrow. And it was the first time in my life that I was finally sick and tired of Mike. I kind of burnt it down to the end. I knew the gig was up. I'd been going places I had no intention of ever going. I've crossed every moral barrier I never said that I would, and I'm doing this again. And my friends are, kids I grew up with are going to play college hockey, and they're going to play college football, and they're graduating, and they're like going to, they got a decent life, and I'm going away again. And I thought, I'll do this. And I remember my mom said, sure, yeah, come on through and do that. And my mom would have done anything for me. My mom would have buried the body with me. She would have done anything for me. The night that stabbing thing happened, I remember I showed up because I never went home to Mom's house. And that night I went home to Mom's house because I knew it was a place that was kind of off the beaten track. You couldn't track me down there. No one, and I'm stumbling around in her garage. I'm butt naked, covered, my hands are covered in blood, and I got my clothes, and I'm wasted in her garage, and my mom comes out and, sees that. And I just handed her the clothes. I said, wash them. If the cops call, you haven't seen me. And I went downstairs, I shower, I change, I leave, And that's just the kind of kid that I was. But I did a pretty good job of staying away from there. But this woman answers the phone, and she says, sure, you can come here and stay for the night. And then I turned myself in. I remember I slept and ate for the first week I was in there because I like to drink, and then I like to shoot crystal meth alcoholically as well, and that's all I could really do. I think when I turned myself in, I weighed about 125 pounds. I was completely shot out of my life, and I, as soon as I could, I asked for a pencil and a piece of paper, and I wrote down the sad existence of my life, the kind of son I'd been, the brother I'd been, the friend I'd been, everything I'd thrown away. Because you see, I'm not a dumb guy. I know that 1 + 1 = 2. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at my life and realize that I've not been calling good shots, right? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at my life and realize the drinking's probably got to stop. The drugs definitely have to go. The life has to go. And I honestly believed in my heart of hearts that if I just wrote all that down and kept that piece of paper handy, I'd never pick up a drink of alcohol again, because I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a dumb guy either. And if I ever have the thought to go out again, I'll just grab that letter, I'll read that letter, and I I won't do it. There's a paragraph right before the paragraph where you started reading on page 24, and it says, he will be unable at certain times to bring into his consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago we were without defense against the first drink. This is what the book says, and a friend of mine always says, it's not true because it's in the book because it's true. And the reality of that is although I believe that and I thought that would be the case, I went away for about a year and I came home and I marched back into AA and I asked this guy to sponsor me again, and then I met her, and she's at a treatment center, and she's the love of my life, and he's not he's telling me I shouldn't date, and I'm trying to explain to him, you don't understand, you're old, it's like God put us here at the same time, it's a thing, and I can't, now we can't connect, I can't call him anymore for advice, because he's going to tell me I'm not, whatever, I'm self-reliant or something like that, some tricky sponsor phrase, and I'm not kidding you, I'm home for 4 weeks. Cocktail light goes on. And I remember I was sitting with this girl because I had a little over a year sober because I was locked up. She's like, you got a year sober? And I said, I know. But listen, let's have a couple of beers. What's the worst that could possibly happen? And I swear to God, you could have put me on a lie detector test that night and said, what are you doing tonight, Mike? And I said, I'm going to have 4 or 5 beers, get laid. That thing would have told you I was telling you the truth because that's exactly what I believed. I'm not going to do the thing again. I'm not going to let it get out of control. Be back here on Saturday morning. And we drank, and I sobered up 18 months later. Pulling a needle out of my arm one more time with a Budweiser in my hand. Hadn't drawn a sober breath. And I remember standing there with this gal in this dude's house. I drank the neck out of that first beer. I remember sitting there in the kitchen. She's standing there, he's here, and I crushed the neck out of that first beer, and I think, this is a bad idea. Because I know. I've never just set out. I've never had a drink and come home. Or 2. Or I drink to get drunk, because I like the effect produced by alcohol. And if 5's good, 10's great, 20's got to be better. And I go. And coupled with that's the phenomenon of craving. This inability to stop or moderate once I start. Which I've heard. I've been to good big book studies. I've been to a Bob D. big book study before I got sober. I've heard it. I heard it. Broke down great. Just didn't think it applied to me, I thought, again, good information for you folks. That seems like it would work, but I'm different, And I took off and I burned my life. I went, again, places I never thought that I would go, doing things I never thought that I would do. And it got really, really dark, but there's nothing more dark than drinking against your own will. Wanting to stop and not being able to. Thinking that you're going to be able to and not being able to. Waking up in the morning and the terror of your life is on you. And I was a guy, I shot speed in a way that I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to go to bed. I remember being wasted. Everyone's like, I'm hanging out at this house one night and I've literally probably crushed 30 beers in like a 5-hour span. People are falling, they're dropping like flies, not me. I'm in here. And this lady looked at me and she said, hey, don't you think you'd feel better if you just went to bed? And I looked at her and I said, I can't go to bed. And she said, why? And I said, because I wake up sober. And it was probably one of the most honest things I said, but the reality of it is for me is I can't wake. I can't do sober. I don't want to go to bed. I'll just wake up somewhere, pipe on your lap or whatever it is. I can do that and then just carry on, but I can't. I don't do sober well. I'm almost terrified of it. I don't want to be in my own skin with my own mind. It's a terrible place for a guy like me to be. And I didn't. So for 18 months, I was burning my life to the ground. And then I phoned a friend. I phoned a friend who I was in treatment with in 2003. And I'd phoned this guy. I'd called this guy 40 times. Because I'd think, hey, I'm ready. You guys maybe get the call. Maybe you know the guy. I was like a 12-step dummy, Hey, I'm ready. And then you'd send RJ. He'll work on him this time, Whatever it is. Hey, I got a new guy. Send the new guy. Let him try some new tricks on this guy because I'm not going to be here for long. I'm actually going to be here for the night, and then I'm gone tomorrow. And that was really the kind of way it was. But this guy didn't pick up the phone and say, Mike, you're a loser. You're a waste of my time. I'm not coming to get you. Mike, every time I come to get you, you get a free meal off me and then you leave again. And then or I bring you around the meeting and you threaten people and you give them a piece of your mind and you're very unpleasant to have around. He said, where are you at? I'll come get you. Because that's what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. The call comes and we go. I don't care how many times you've been here. I don't care how hope to die drunk you are, because I'm a hope to die drunk. I'm a guy who I always drink again. I will most definitely drink again if I don't treat my alcoholism. And alcoholism demands treatment. And part of the way that I treat that today is obviously by saying yes. But when that guy comes, and I've seen that guy, and you know the guy too, like the phone rings and you're like, oh man, like the sponsee you got to pray for before you pick up. You're like, all right, I can get in here with him, because it's just going to be nonsense, it's just going to be nonsense. But it doesn't matter because I got, y'all picked up the call for me, and for me it was nonsense for a long, long time. And you knew, so I owe my life to Alcoholics Anonymous, and that guy picked up the phone, he said, where are you at? I'll come get you. And he did. He brought me to an AA meeting, he fed me a burger, and for this time I made it home with him. I made it to the couch. And I just said, look, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And he brought me to another meeting, and at that meeting I heard a guy give a talk about a God so big that nothing mattered, and he talked about love. And I don't believe in God. I was raised Catholic, but I just more had this agreement with God that we're going to agree to disagree. And I knew the way I live my life, we don't have a whole lot to talk about because I've been absolutely, I'm not with, sharing in a general way, but I'm an absolute terrorist, right? And I move through the world in it's not a good way, right? And I just know that if there's a God, we don't have a whole lot to talk about. And then the love thing is, the reality of it for me in my life, too, is my father walked out on our family when I was 11 years old. And he never called, never wrote, never sent a card. And I hated that guy. And I've pretty much hated people ever since. I'd use you, right? I'd use you to get what I needed. Like a pawn in my game to get to the means to my end, whatever the end is that I think that it is. But I've never put myself in a position to ever be left again since I was 11 years old. And I came in here with that, and I thought, because I've never been able to come in, connect, and stay. I've never been able to come in, sit all the way down, and be able to hear what y'all have got going on, get involved in what you're doing, and then be able to have some sort of new experience. And I walked up to that guy and I said, look, I need help. Will you sponsor me? And he's, of course, he said, well, let's talk about it. And the most important thing he said to me, he said, kid, if you're going to be able to stay here, you're going to have to unlearn some things you know for sure that are killing you. Alcoholics Anonymous isn't about learning new information, it's about unlearning the things that just aren't so. And I didn't know what he was talking about. Because to me, in my life, my experience is all that matters. It's my truth. It's my reality. It's my story. And he explained to me that I was going to have to start to abandon that. And we get going on this, and I said, okay, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do this time, right? And I knew I had to go fast. We were talking about it before the meeting. My window, I got about 3 weeks. Or I'm out of here. You got to get me moving because my head's going to come up. I already want to leave. You know what I'm saying? I already want to leave. So give me something. And obviously you can't cultivate your own spiritual experience, but what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is we get you busy, right? I'll get you busy. We'll get you active. We get you doing the things in the fellowship, right? I'm going to get you calling drunks and going to the meeting and getting a commitment at the meeting and shaking some hands and trying to get outside of myself. And I don't know what's happening, but y'all started training my feet in AA. And you just show up. And I was not an easy guy to be around. I was a very unpleasant guy to be around for a really, really long time. And I was again completely shot. When I sobered up, I had a hamper full of clothes, couldn't speak full sentences, and again I weighed about 125 pounds. I'm shot out of my life. And I remember being 5, maybe 6 months sober. I was serving food at a Perkins, which is like a Denny's. They have Perkins here? They have Denny's. Or an IHOP, same thing. And I'm serving food at one of those places, and it was the first, even that, to go with that job, they said, I have no work history. They go in there and just tell them the truth. And I'm like, do they the whole truth? They're like, yeah, just tell them that you're a guy who struggles with drug addiction and alcoholism, and you're finally getting your life on track, but you've never ever had an honest job. But you'd love an opportunity to be able to get a job here. And I did that. And they taught me how to tie a tie. And they taught me how to show up. And I didn't know that they were developing me and showing me how to be a man, a member of society. Anyway, so I get this job, though. And unannounced to me, I didn't know that people wore suits to work. I just thought, Fed, right? That's it. And one day, they said, hey, Mike, we got 2 guys in your section. You got to, I'm swinging around the corner with the waters, and I see him, and I'm 6 months sober. And I thought, whoa, feds. And I said, hey, you got to take my table. And I go downstairs, and I call my sponsor, and I'm running through the parking lot of the place, and I'm trying to spot the vehicle, and I'm like, no, it's them for sure. I can see the vehicle. It's them. They're here to get me, or at least here to check on me. They want to make sure that I'm really sober. But again, he just took the call, right? He just said, all right, you're like, let's go, just go in there and be a service. Go in there and do your job. Go in there. Doesn't matter what your head says. But like, those were the calls. I remember being about 9 months sober. It's funny, we were having this conversation earlier, and probably why we're going here. And I'm sitting out front of my aunt's house, and smoking a cigarette. I'm sitting in the driveway, and I'm looking in the rearview mirror. She lives in a gated community, by the way, not a prison. And in the rearview mirror, I can see two guys watching me from the other living room across the cul-de-sac. And I know when the feds are letting you know that they're watching you, it's bad news, right? Like they're gonna grab you any day. And I thought, man, like I'm sober a while now, and they're still like, someone must have got caught, told on me. They're coming to get me now. The gig's up, it's still over, and I called my sponsor, and then I begrudgingly told my aunt, because I didn't know, I remember I walked out, because I'm sober, I walk out into the cul-de-sac, and I'm staring them down, I'm like letting them know that I see them, and they see me, but like I'm not scared, bring on the case, I'm innocent. And sober like 9 months. And then I tell my aunt, I said, hey, just so you know, and I want to apologize for stopping by here, because the feds they're watching me, and now they're in your neighborhood. They're watching your house. I'm bringing a lot of heat toward you. And my aunt goes over a couple days later. I got sober in 2007. Chuck and Larry just came out. I now pronounce it Chuck and Larry. They were Chuck and Larry cardboard cutouts. They were having like a movie premiere at their house. And that's who you got standing up here, right? I was not doing well when I got here. I was the guy, when you met me, you were like, this dude's never coming back. And I didn't think I was ever coming back. I thought, like, I'm grateful that you guys let me hang around, but, like, I'm not, like, spring chicken. And when I turned a year sober, my aunt came to the birthday, and she said, hey, I'm really proud of what you've done with your life, da-da-da, and Chuck and Larry are really glad that you're sober. It's embarrassing, because you get to, it's embarrassing. But it's also the reality of who you had when I came in here. And I was that guy. I was completely shut out of my life, and I had no idea what was going on, but I just started to do what you guys told me to do. And little by slow, my life started to change. I started writing, I hurdled with the God thing. I don't believe in God. I don't want to believe in God. God and I don't have anything to talk about. And he said, look, you don't need to believe in God. You just need to act like somebody would if they did. And start praying. You want God to be real, treat him like he's real. I'm like, well, how do I do that? He's like, well, you'd have a conversation with someone that's real, right? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, maybe start there. Start having conversations. Just start a dialogue. Get the thing going. And I start doing that. And then we get into writing inventory. And, like I said, I haven't loved anybody ever. So my resentment list is, I got 600 names on it, right? I'm not the guy that's like, I think I ran out after 30. I'm like, no, keep them coming, right? And when I run out of that, I'm putting on the whole race of that people and those people that look like that. Like, I've got literally everybody covered, because I don't like none of you. And I'm pissed off about it. And then we do this, there's, some work in the book in between the third and the fourth column. And he says, you're gonna pray to look at life from an entirely different angle. You're gonna ask God to help you do this, and you're gonna start to pray over these people. Because the thing I want you to understand, he goes, do you think you're a bad guy? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a really bad guy. He said, or maybe you're a sick guy. And I said, I don't know. I've done a lot of really bad things. But, he helps me draw on the fact of, who I was when I was a kid and the way and the skills I picked up to live my life and the things that I'd done. He said, when you were doing all those things to people, think about the 3 worst things you've ever done, Mike. And I'm like, yeah, I got them. And he said, is there any way when you did those things you were thinking about God or had a God consciousness or you were thinking about packing love into the stream of life? And I thought, absolutely not. God didn't exist. We're apart from him. He said, okay. So maybe you're spiritually sick. And I said, sure. And he said, okay, I want you to think about the 3 worst things that have ever happened to you. And I'm like, yep, got him. And he said, do you think that any way when those things happened to you or those people did those things to you, that they were connected to God or thinking with a God consciousness? And I thought, probably. Really? Because that's about as far as I got, probably. Because it is my story and I am a victim. But the reality of it is it's probably not, right? And he said, is it possible that they too, just like you, were sick people, which is really the work that happens there on the bottom of page 66 up to 67. And at the end of a lot of AA meetings, we end them with the Lord's Prayer. And in the Lord's Prayer, it says, God, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And when I take that sentence, that line, and I take it and I chew on it and I think about it and I pray about it and I meditate with it. It just simply says, God, don't forgive me unless I forgive them. And I don't know about y'all, but I wanted to be let off the hook for all the things that I'd done, so I had to start getting willing to let you off the hook. And I start praying to this God I don't believe in over these people that I hate, and little by slow, like the hate just starts to shift to compassion and love. And I know inside of myself I don't possess the ability to do that. Right? I'm looking at my father's name on this list, and I'm thinking he's just a bad guy that made a bad call. Not a bad guy, he's just a guy that made a bad call. Right? Not the call I would have made, not the call I would have hoped to make. But I was 18 months sober. I went and found my father. Lives in Chicago. We have dinner on the Navy Pier, and I asked him out to dinner. Guy came to dinner. We have dinner. We walked the Navy Pier afterwards, and I just simply looked at him and I said, listen, I don't agree with what happened when we were kids, but I want you to know that I'm all right with it. Because the thing I had to buy into here was, it's just like the book said, that resentment's the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. My hate, my distaste for you keeps me separated from you. And why that's a problem is because, well, I can't really access God without accessing you. I don't know if you guys got some secret code or, a relationship where you're talking to God, and if you probably do, don't tell anybody, because you're going to lock you up in a psych ward. But the way I see God's when I'm sitting kneecap to kneecap with you. But the problem I've always had when I come to Alcoholics Anonymous is I don't like you. I don't have anything to talk about with you. I'm not going to be here that long anyway, so why try to get to know you? Whatever it is, right? It's just like, but it hindered me. But when I started to get sprung from that trap, I started to experience the evidence and the belief that God is real, because I knew that I didn't possess the ability to be able to do that in my own life. And I carried on. And my life took off because I was bought in on AA, and you couldn't have stopped me. I started going, I'm bringing meetings into the jail twice a week. I'm in the detox once a week, and part of that's because of the people I hung around with, and they just got me busy doing AA. And guys that I ran with said, look, if you want to stay here, one meeting a week you got to go to a place that you never want to end up in again. And I thought, okay, I'm game. I'll go to one of those spots, and I start doing that thing, and I start doing that deal, and my life took off, and I get busy. I start making my amends, and I'm sponsored by a guy that says you're going to make all your amends. And I'm thinking, like all of them? Like all of them? And he said, yeah, and you're going to pay all the money back too. And I thought, like all of the money? Bro, what are you talking? Some of them deserved it, But the reality of it, and he'd look at me and he said, kid, how free do you want to be? Right? Because you get into the book and right, up to page 58, they do a lot of talking about alcohol. But then after that, it's just self. And even as soon as I get to the third step, it says, God, relieve me of the bondage of self. Not relieve me of the bondage of alcohol. The thing that's killing me is my need for me over you. My inability to be able to see you, because the only person I care about is Mike. When I got to go and make amends to people, I get even with the world, and I get to feel comfortable in my own skin in a way that I've never ever felt comfortable in my own skin. I'll give you one amends story, because I apparently got caught talking about something I shouldn't have, but I remember I made a bunch. I made a lot of amends because I had a lot of people on my resentment list. But there was a family. It was a house I home invaded, and I've been interrogated for this home invasion 3 times. So it was I waited because I wasn't, I'm not going to turn myself in and go to jail. That's crazy. But it came to a place with my sponsor who was like, well, how free do you want to be? You're just going to let this thing linger out there and know that you always have some unfinished business between you and God, some unfinished business between him and his kids? And I thought, he's like, look, you're making money. You can go back you can pay the money back and let God do what God does. You either trust God or you don't. And I thought, easy for you to say when it's not your amends. You know what I'm saying? You weren't the one interrogated about it. I know they want to hang me for this one, But it had been, I don't know how many years, 7, 8 years, but I did. I grabbed a sponsee and I went in there and I found this family, and I set up a meeting, and I went over there, and I could hear the husband's upstairs. He's yelling from upstairs, get this, whatever. He's not happy that I'm in the house. And my sponsor said, just lead with the money. And I did. I handed him an envelope full of a lot of cash, because if it wasn't bolted to the floor, we took it, right? And I just proceeded to tell him that I'm a guy who suffers from alcoholism, drug addiction, and I robbed your house. And as a part of my 9-step amends, I'm here to try to see what I can do to make that right. I want to understand how my behavior made you all feel, and what I did to you, and whatever I can do to make it right. And unannounced to me, this family had blamed their daughter for this robbery as if she helped set it up for years, and they almost ostracized their kid. Like, she was the one who did this, like, you set it up, you're a troubled child, and I get to watch this family, mom, dad, and daughter, reunite in front of me. And I'm thinking, and then the wife says, I'm like 5 months sober, been going to AA. So she knows exactly what I'm doing. And I get to watch God thread the needle in my life and understand that, like, what I think I'm there doing, I'm not there doing. I just get to be a walking example of a big book that day for that family, and at the same time get set free for something that's weighing heavy on my heart and driving me in my own life. And I mean, by the time the conversation's done, obviously the cops don't get called. Hey, you want to stay? We're ordering Chinese. You want to stay for lunch? I mean, that's literally how it ended. I said, yeah, I'm good on lunch. But, like, it got a little uncomfortable. I wasn't ready to, like, hang out with the family and, start having sleepovers. But it was, because you'll walk out of that room, and if you don't believe in God, you'll start to. Because I can't write that story. I don't know how to make that thing happen. And I also think that I'm going there to make an amends for what I did to them. And the reality of it is, it wasn't about the stuff. They haven't been close to their daughter in a way like that for years. And I took that from them. I don't know the depths of what my behavior has done to you. I think I do, but I'm also coming at it from a very selfish, self-centered, close, like, my point of view. I'll be, whatever, right? You get the point. So I continue on, and my life just starts to get good. And I'm busy helping guys, and I'm doing the thing. And I honestly started, I literally had this idea. Maybe I heard someone say it, but it was like, you've got a big God, so dream big. And you can do anything you want. And when I came from where I came from, with the skills I had, with everything that I had in my life, and my life started to change, I knew that God was real. And I thought, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. And I've always wanted to start a business, so I'm going to start a business. And then I started a business. And again, I haven't been to school. I got a GED when I was locked up. They made me do that. But that's it. I haven't been to school since 8th grade. I've not taken a class since 8th grade. And I was like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do the thing. And I started. And I started making, I don't know if it's cursed with chronic success or whatever, but I started making money. And it came pretty easy. And I started, what happened to me is my life, the life that AA gave me, started to get in the way of my AA life. And I don't even say that in the sense of, like, I would say the life that AA gave me started to get in the way of my spiritual life. Because my activity volume in Alcoholics Anonymous has always been pretty high. I've always been a guy that makes it to a lot of meetings. I've always been a guy that does H&I. I've always been a guy that's had a lot of sponsees. I've always been a guy that's in the game doing the deal. But as I've been going through this and I'm making money and I'm doing the thing, and I'd start having trouble. And I start having problems in areas I never had areas, and I start acting out in ways that I didn't think that were ever going to be possible, right? And I'm a guy. I got married. I got a daughter. I got another daughter on the way, and I'm a terrible husband. I'm a terrible business owner because I lead with a whip. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's how you do it. I don't know how to bring spiritual principles into all this stuff, and I start just slowly moving myself out. And I'd sit there and talk to my sponsor when I'm having trouble in my life, and I'd say, I don't know what's going on because I'm doing everything I need to do. And he'd say, look, busy doesn't equal surrendered. And I didn't know what he was talking about because I'm like busy doing the deal. Like you said that, go sponsor guys, do the thing, go get more guys, bring them out, meeting into the jail. But the reality of it is there was no God in a lot of what it was that I was doing. It was, I'd pray. I'd send you my nightly review, but the conscious contact, it's like I do it. It's more of I'm a check the box kind of guy. Yeah, prayed, good. Let's go. Now let's go make money. Let's go get the thing. And I become this guy on, and there's a line in the book, and I believe it. There's a step on the wall. Second part I think most of my problems, all of our problems, are step 1, section B. I think I'm in management. And never ever have I ever been assigned back to a management role. But I start getting sober, and I start getting a little bit of things going on, and I start wanting to think that I'm the guy, and I'm going to start making it happen because I know what I need. And the reality of that is it says on page 61 that am I not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? And am I not a victim of the delusion that I can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of the world if only managed well? And it's like I almost forgot what got me all right. And it just shifted to the outside. I thought, well, if that's good, then I want that kind of girl. And if that's cool, then I want those tattoos. And I want that car. And I want another watch. And I want to make more money. And I started in on this thing to I started trying to fix my inside problem with outside stuff. And it was subtle. Because I didn't see it happening. At 8 years sober, my life blew up. in a drastic way. I was going through a divorce. I had a business deal go south, and I was shook to the core. I mean, it was literally like God came into my world and just shook everything that I've been building, everything that I thought I cared about, and just kind of knocked me on the head and said, "Kid, where are you at?" And this business deal was, I'd lost $750,000 in a business deal, and I was, again, put in a place where resentment's the number one offender of the story of alcoholics than anything else, because I'm sitting in the meeting, but I can't hear what you have to say, because I'm obsessed with getting this guy. And I'm battling internally that I got to get this guy, because you don't get to get over on me like that. You know who I am. Here's the deal: is you can put anything you want between you and God. The problem is there's something in between you and God, and I can't get past this. My sponsor said, "Hey, I need you to write an inventory, 5 names." He knew what. I would send him a nightly review. He knew exactly what was going on in my life. I just couldn't connect the dots. And we sat there for about 8 hours and walked through these 5 names. And I couldn't see it from an entire... he had to help me understand what was going on in my world, and he just kind of pushed me back into Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was already there, but really pushed me back into my relationship with God and this need that I can't be the guy that's calling the shots. I can't be the guy that's in management. I can't, right? And it's a thin line between me showing... We were talking about it earlier today, but between me showing up to be of service to you or me showing up to be of service to Mike. They can oftentimes look the same. It looks very similar at a lot of times. And I just got busy. And lengthily for me, and if you're new and you're in the room or you've been here for a while and you're kind of on the fringe, the only thing I'd say is this, is as long as here's the deal. I almost picked this reading because it's in Bill's story, and it says, "For if an alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through the work and self-sacrifice for others, he will not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead." The reality of life is that life is life. And it's going to deal you whatever cards it's going to deal you. Some of them self-imposed, some of them not. Jobs will be lost. Relationships might end. People are going to get sick. It's hard. But if I'm angled into the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous and I'm shoulder deep with you guys, when the blow comes, I'm going to be all right. You all are going to help me absorb the blow. Y'all are going to walk me shoulder to shoulder and help me be the guy that I need to be when I can't be that guy myself. But if I'm a fringe guy and I'm on the outside and that blow comes, I'm done. Because I don't know about y'all, but I just treat that with isolation. I just got to go home and feel sorry for myself. And I start doing that for a little bit. And then my alcoholism is going for the win. And it starts by separating me from you. I believe that. Alcoholism's disease is isolation. If it can get me out of this room, if it can get me to stop talking to you, if it can get me just a little bit further away and then a little bit further away, my mind's going to start working on me until a drink looks like a good idea, or until ketamine treatment seems like a way to spiritual growth, whatever it is. But, seriously. And that can happen at any moment, right? I'm not knocking you. It's because the reality of it is this me, and I'm him, and he's me. My sponsor, this guy changed, he brought me through the work. It changed my life. 13 months sober. We're sitting there, and I'm a different guy. And we were sitting there in a diner having lunch, and he looked at me and he said, "I need to talk to you about something." I said, "What's going on?" And I'm on fire for AA. And he looked at me and he said, "I need you to understand something, that the God that you've come to believe in isn't God at all. There's only one God, and that's your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ." And I looked at him and I said, "This isn't going to work for me." And he said, "I figured you would say that, so you're going to probably want to find a new sponsor." And this guy, behind the guise of being a good guy, slowly kind of walked himself out. Picked up a drink within 9 months. He ain't been sober in 18 and a half years. And the reality of it is my whole thing, right back to the reading, when this sort of thinking is established and an individual with alcoholic tendencies has probably placed himself beyond human aid. Just because I'm sober and I'm removed from a drink doesn't mean that I don't suffer from alcoholism. My alcoholism's alive and well, and it sits right in between my ears. And it's constantly working on me, telling me what the next cool idea is going to be, or how I should separate myself to go do the next thing, or what. And the crazy thing about it is that we were talking about earlier too, is that it'll weaponize this gift of Alcoholics Anonymous to soon I start doing it. Now I'm judging everyone that's not doing it right, And now I'm weaponizing it to almost justify my poor behavior. Because at least I'm being honest, I'm doing the thing. And that's, I want to end my talk with this, I guess. So I make it through that, obviously, and I just keep getting busy in AA, and I do the thing. And the reality of that is that my problem's the same problem. It might look like financial issues. It might look like a job. It might look like a relationship. But at my core, I'm a guy who suffers from alcoholism. It's a spiritual disease. And if I can treat the spirit and I can come here and be with you folks and do this deal, I'll get back in. The game will sort itself out. The relationship will rectify. Whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen because that's the way it's supposed to happen. Right? When I was like 11 months sober or 11 years sober, I was sitting there. I had this relationship ending. It had been a back and forth thing with this gal, and we were just ripping each other apart. I was probably doing more tearing than she was, but I was not good in relationships, and I hadn't been good in relationships since I was 11 years old. Because the reality of my life is, as soon as you get close enough to me that I know that you can hurt me, I got to start pushing. I got to get you out of here. And if I can't get you out of here, then you're going to show me every single day how bad you want to be here, because that's what love looks like for me, right? And I'm tearing this girl's life apart. And I remember I was sitting with my sponsor, and I said, look, I'm giving him the story. Woe is me. I got the story. And he looked at me and he said, you're violently verbally abusive, and you think you can treat anybody you want because you're Mike Powers and all of the things that you have going on in your life. And I care a whole lot less about what you have going on in your life and a lot more about how you treat God's kids. And I just started to cry because I knew he was telling me the truth. And I looked at him and I said, well, I don't know what to do. And he said, that's BS. You know exactly what to do. These problems that you're struggling with aren't new problems, Mike. If I was your sponsee and I came to your house and I asked you what to do, you'd march me through it in 60 seconds. You got to get honest with yourself. The reality of it is you don't want to change. You want to do what you want to do. You want to treat people the way you want to treat them. You want to get what you want to get, and you don't want to suffer any consequences for it. And this guy, I was like, he's kicking me while I'm down, but he's telling me the truth. And the reality of it is that in order for me to stay here and grow up, I have to grow up spiritually. And I have to look at some things, again, more things that are false, and get the truth about myself. And it's not that I'm verbally abusive in the sense, he said to me, Buddhists say that the control is violence, which doesn't really hit for me, but the way I weaponize, right? I'm the guy, we're having a dispute, you don't like it, leave. That's violent, because there's no negotiation. We're not having a talk. You want to have that talk, bounce. There's the door, right? There's no love in that. God doesn't live in there. And I said to him, he said, look, you know exactly what to do, but what's better than a really good answer are really good questions. And I would start to suggest that you would start asking yourself a really good question. And a really good question that I want you to ask yourself in the morning when you're doing your meditation is, what kind of man do you want to be? And then just sit there with it. Don't start filling it in. Just sit there with, let it come to you internally. What kind of man do you want to be? And I know I'm a guy that's got a business. I'm the guy that's got I've got 2 kids. I co-parent with their mother. I've got relationship, my whole entire life, all of life is relationships. What kind of man do I want to be when I show up? What kind of man do I want to be when I show up in AA? Do I want to leave the room brighter and lighter than I found it, or do I want to suck the life out of it and dump my problems on everybody, right? I know exactly what kind of guy I want to be and exactly how I want to show up, and I just start to align my life with that. And keep it almost more importantly as a guide of where I'm at and who's running the show. Because at any given moment, it'll start looking like I'm still surrendered and doing what I believe God would want me to do, but it's Mike's, right? I'm here with ill intentions. And I can't afford to be there. So I start doing this, and little by slow, my life just starts to change. But it took a long time, because I spent years rebuilding my ego. I spent years rebuilding my life up. Don't you see what I got? Don't you see who I am? And none of it matters. The only thing that matters is whether or not I can connect with you in an intimate way and be vulnerable. Whether or not I can love you. And I'm terrified to allow you to see me like that. I don't do that very well. But in starting to do that and have that experience, my life, my relationship with everybody around me has changed. Like I got 2 daughters. My frequency with my kids is the exact same. My relationship with them, absolutely different. Because when I'm with them, I'm with them. I'm present. My phone's away. Biggest complaint I got from my kids for the longest time was, Dad, you're always on your phone. Quite frankly, it's easier for me to work than it is to be here present with you. I don't say that to them, but the truth, I know what the truth is. I don't, another gymnastics move? Whoa. It's because I don't do that real well. I don't know, I'm so selfish and self-centered, I'm here physically, isn't that good enough? Same thing with the men that I sponsor. Guy calls, you just run him through the thing versus I had a guy call me this morning, he got into it with his wife last night. Oh man, how's that feel? Why do you think you did that? How do you think that made her feel? And really vulnerably get down in the barrel with the guy and understand that, okay, hey, what do you think we should do to get out of it? Because I know. And I want to almost help guys understand that they know too. Start taking the action to be a better guy. You possess the ability to do it. You just don't want to. Or you won't, right? So I start to do that. And even to that, my kids, I have a house in LA and I have my kids and their mom out for spring break last year. We're out there for 10 days running around LA and they go home. And I remember I was talking to their mom when they got home, and I'm like, hey, how was the thing? How was the trip? Yeah. And she said, it pains me to say this because it'd be easier just to hate you. But you're a really good guy. And you're a really good father. And the only reason I'm that guy and not my dad is because of you folks here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I also got another look into what my father had to go through when I went through it, when I was going through my divorce. And I know it's easier not to show up. It sucks walking into a house when you know everybody's upset with you, to carry that cross, to face everybody. And I'd call my sponsor and I'd explain to him how I don't want to go in there and I don't want to do this. And he'd say, that's good, but this isn't about you. Now go in there and be a father. And go in there and support their mother. And because of you guys, I get to, over a long period of time of taking consistent and solid action, I get to have a life beyond my wildest dreams and relationships with people that are absolutely, I don't deserve that. And left to my own devices with my own skill set, I'd ruin them all. I was talking to their mom yesterday, and we're talking about it's the way I couldn't do it. I was talking to my father a couple weeks ago. First time I talked to him in a couple of years. Because he's just a guy who struggles with what he struggles with. And I don't even think my dad's alcoholic. He's just a different type of dude. Whatever it is, it's just his life. I don't know. And I don't really have an opinion about it. But because my daughter had asked, she said, hey, when do we get to meet Grandpa? And I said, that's a great idea. Let me ask him. And I remember 3 years ago, I launched this guy a text. No answer. Hit him up 6 months later, no answer. Hit him up, nothing. Hit him like twice a year. And then eventually I asked his wife, because maybe he did change his number. I don't know, because it's crazy that you're not answering. But at the same time, maybe that's just where you draw the line in the sand. And this guy picked up the phone 2 months ago. And he said, hey, I need to apologize that it freaked me out when you asked if your kids could meet me. And I don't know how to do that. And then we just sat there and we talked, and he said, you know what, I'm really proud of you because you've handled your situation with your kids way better than I did with mine. And again, it's not because of me, it's because of the folks here in Alcoholics Anonymous and the way that y'all have taught me how to show up. Because I, too, don't possess those skill sets. Otherwise, I'm the guy on the other end of the phone like my dad. Terrified to pick up the phone, terrified to make the call because I don't know what it's going to look like, and I'm terrified of what you're going to think about me. So if you're new here, or you've been here for a while and you're on your way out and you don't know it yet, I would strongly encourage you to get in the middle. Come all the way in, sit all the way down. And tether yourself to this thing with a commitment and find someone that you can help and lean into your relationship with God because it's all you got. Thank you.